Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the RM Take Action webinar. Our topic today is about designing better, faster, and together. My name is Peter Goff. I'm the founder of RM. We're a digital agency that's part of the Paragon Group, and we're within its digital customer experience business. I'm joined today by Christine McCready, who is Director of Marketing Comms at HomeServe. They're a leading home assistant provider, and if you're like me, if you're just about to switch your central heating boiler on and it doesn't work, please go to their website rather than a competitor, because you might be needing them soon. I'm also joined by Martin Bowie, or Bowie, as he's known. He's our experience director, design director at RM, who heads up our design team and who worked together with Christy and her team on a customer story that we're going to tell you today. If you have any questions as we go through the webinar, please add them into the Q&A tab at the bottom, into the chat tab at the bottom of the screen, and we'll answer them. We'll allow some time at the end for Christy and Bowie to answer any questions you have. Okay, so our webinar today, it's about designing better, faster, and together. And I wanted to pose some of the challenges we feel brands are facing today. Brand loyalty isn't a given anymore. We can't just expect customers to remain loyal. There's too much choice. New competitors are coming to the market who are always going to try to disrupt our markets. There's pressure to deliver more convenience, peace of mind, ease of interaction, seamless channels to our customers, and who are demanding a great experience right now. My parents are in their 80s, and I see them, and they're online a lot, and they start to tell me the difference between a good and a bad experience. They now have an opinion on what is a good experience with a brand. And what we're facing as brands, and what we're seeing as an agency, is there's lots of large transformation programs going on, and they can take a long time, 3 to 5 year transformation programs. A lot of them plans were created pre-COVID, and they're certainly possibly starting to go off track, or we're at least starting to think about how we pivot them plans. And one thing the pandemic has been teaching all organizations right now is to be more adaptable, to be more flexible to that changing landscape and the changing customer needs that's going on right now. And then that has its own set of challenges. It means internally, we've got to sort of change the mindsets in our business. We need to accelerate the digitization of processes, the back office, the middle office layers of operations, so we can cater and serve our customers more digitally. We need to come up with new ways of working, some of which we might address today, that are perhaps more leaner. There might be more design thinking methods that can solve business challenges quicker. So I think it's, and then we've got to think about getting time to market, getting digital initiatives and marketing initiatives with speed to market to take advantage of that. But having to understand where to focus is really important. Now, we're not going to answer all of this in a webinar today, but I really hope that we might actually answer some of them questions today to give you all inspiration to take action. So I'm going to move straight into our guests and just start posing some questions. So I will go straight to Bowie, really, who, from an agency perspective, just because it leads quite nicely on from perhaps what I've just spoken about. What are you advocating from an agency perspective, and why, when it comes to designing better, faster, and together?
Well, thanks, PG. Thanks. You know, as a matter of fact, I have a slide on here for that. You know, look at that. And you know, is anybody a football fan out there? A American football fan out there? So you're probably wondering why I have a football as a background here. So I'll tell you a little story about this. So within the game of football, right? You know, once a team is playing and your team gets way behind in scoring and touchdowns and stuff like that, you enter the 2-minute drill before the game ends, and you become the big loser and have to go home on the bus, right? Okay. So at that point, you know, the coaches kind of switches the offense to this really up-tempo kind of offense called the 2-minute drill offense, the up-tempo offense, the no hurdle, right? To score as many points as possible using minimal plays, using specialized players to score these touchdowns, right? Okay, and they found out that it works, right? He's able to catch up or even win the game, right? So this went on for like a whole decade, right? Before someone kind of realized, wait a minute, why do we have to do this towards the end of the game? Why can't we do this throughout the whole game, right? Why do we need to wait to the beginning? So they started adapting this new philosophy and this new way of playing, right? And say, you know what, we're gonna beat the game here. We're gonna pick it up and we're gonna score a lot. We're gonna win, right? And hence the birth of this new offense, right? That we have in the NFL, college football, I see in here. And they're just scoring like crazy right now. And teams are really thriving on that. So next slide. So what that means to us, right? So it means that, big is over, right? Go lean, go rapid, or go home, right? Okay. We can't live here with big strategy that, have, big end-to-end try solutions, try to find everything, big process, big timeline that just look daunting and overbearing, waiting for the big failure at the end and you don't know how to recuperate from that. And also big team, because big teams really hard to manage and big hard to finance for things, right? Okay. So this is, how this applies to like lean design approach. Well, with this, we focus on experience under the design, right? And less about the details, deliverables, meaning that we try to develop the concept quickly and iterate on it, and by learning and testing and improving it, right? A lot of the companies, both client size and agency, are having to adopt this model, right? Companies are moving from like traditional manufacturing kind of inside out ways of working, say, hey, here's what I need you to do, to more like startup mentality and process, like, hey, come be a partner like Christy did for us, right? And help us define products and new business models and that we can adjust as we go along together. So
Great,
next slide.
No, go on, Boo.
Yeah, next slide. So at L'Oreal, we kind of developed these kind of principles that when we go into this kind of rapid design, lean UX design, that it really helps us achieve what we want to do both for ourselves and both for our clients, right? So first one is, I'll try to put the football metaphor on here just so that it relates, okay? So first one, be a player, right? Be one actual team member player. That means that, though, the games now is all computer simulated, they're drawn out, but you still have to think like a football player, right? Understand your opponents, right? And who's playing on the field, what they're good at, what are you good at, and stuff like that, right? Fail early, fail often, right? You got to test all your football plays out, right? And learn which one works and which one doesn't work, right? The one that doesn't work, you throw them out the game book, right? The one that does work, you adjust it for that guy, you punch in that touchdown, right? You learn from your mistake quickly and you adjust the game plan, right? Working as one, everyone has a role to play on the team, right? In this new environment, you need that multiplayer, disciplinary team to win the ball game, right? Everyone has a role to play. Everyone needs to have, a strict outline on how to win the game. Small gains can win the game. This is meaning like, instead of always going for that long touchdown, the bomb you try to throw it down there, go for the shorter plays, right? The shorter plays actually have a higher percentage of getting you to that end zone and that to score a touchdown, that big bomb that you try and throw down there, So how does this relate to everything? Instead of thinking of a project, think about products, right? Smaller bit size that gets you to achieve quicker to your main goal. And lastly, you have to hit the right mindset, right? So like PG saying, like with every game plan, you need the right players that have the right mindset that can deliver this up-tempo, rapid offense, right? Players with T-shaped skills that believe in this methodology and approach, right? So those are kind of like the principle. Ellie, if you can go back up one. Yeah, so these are the principles. If you live it, you win the ball game with it.
Okay, all right. Well, okay. So I've never understood NFL football. So
it's the real football game. That's why you don't understand it, PG.
Hang on a minute.
That's not the kicking ball stuff.
Chrissy, let's step back. Let's step back a little bit then. So, what was HomeServe's challenge at the time, and the business drivers? And then, I suppose the second question is, what appealed to you about that type of thinking that Bowie was talking about just then?
Yeah, definitely. So the challenge we had at HomeServe is we're a business that's been built historically very successfully on a direct mail model. And direct mail is really, really important to us and will continue to be so. But we recognize we need to grow and change. Our customers are changing, they're operating in digital, and we need to be able to serve them seamlessly in digital with a brilliant online experience. And we just couldn't, because our website wasn't where any of us wanted it to be. So it was outdated, it was old-fashioned, it wasn't focused on clear user experience and customer journeys. And so we made it really hard for people to navigate and shop with us. And as a result, the site wasn't converting at the rate that we need it to be for our future growth. So we had a really single ambition in this project that we needed to redefine our online experience in order to double our baseline conversion. And that was our going in principle, and the one that we needed to work to. And then we needed to be really choiceful to your second question about the partner we worked with and how we did it. So I know nothing about NFL, but I do know about toilets. And actually, like, if you're buying a house that needs renovating, you're not going to paint all of the bedrooms before you make sure your toilet's flushing, right? You're going to think about how do you break these things down and what are the things that you need to prioritize. And what was really important to us was having a website project that would allow us to unlock commercial return as fast as possible. So we could have, and I've done it a number of times in the past, we could have had a really long 2-3 year program where we built in the background a brand new website and we tested it and we tinkered with it and we made it perfect. And then 3 years later, we went live, only to find the market's moved on and we've invested a huge amount of money in building a site that wasn't trading for us. We made choices that we needed to be agile. We needed to focus on a sprint program of delivery that allowed us to be changing the tires while the car was very much on the track, right? So we choicefully wanted to have a program that allowed us to change the things that made the biggest commercial impact fast, whilst we continue to iterate in the background.
Sure. Maybe this question's for later then, because you have actually answered my question around, did you consider that sort of big bang that Bowie was going on about? Because I could imagine sometimes it's easier, isn't it, just to go back to a blank canvas and start again?
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And also as well, thinking about how you onboard your business as well, because we're going for a program of web change that's more iterative, we haven't taken everything down and then put brand new shiny stuff up. So we do get people in our business like, well, I've been on this page and it's not changed. Well, no, it hasn't yet, because we're live in it now. We're changing those pages first that deliver the biggest commercial return, and we'll fix the footer later on, but like doesn't sell policies for us. So not top of my list of things to fix.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a little bit about stakeholders a bit later, how you manage that, because that can be quite tricky, and to meet everyone's expectations and where you start first in the prioritization.
Yeah.
But Bowie, if we talk about the process, can you explain a little bit more about what you call a rapid design process and how you sort of create that?
Yeah. So kind of like what Chrissy said, you got to think that the whole project as a series of smaller projects, otherwise the tasks become really enormous and heavy and stressful, and I'm starting to get gray hair, so I don't need any more gray hair down here. Kind of like you, PG.
That's a beautiful down haircut, Bowie. Well done.
Yeah, and then again, you don't have to deal with too many requirements, too many moving parts, right? Even too many people you have to answer to.
Yeah.
Secondly, how we did is we went through the same discovery, design, and delivery process, but our discovery and design were interwoven together, right, as one iterative process, right? For HomeServe, we started probably with the shortest discovery period. Thanks, Christy, for that in history. But we knew that that was okay, that we would learn as we go along, right? As we moved along there. So we did like a series of collaborative workshops spanning from business objectives, that's kind of like aligning the wider team to the vision, right? To audience journey, kind of point out where the major barriers were, content, product IA. So we kind of agree on the site structure. And then lastly, with the design of brand, kind of aligning to the visual language a little bit. So all these sessions were done remotely, which kind of saved time, as well as us being prepared with like preconception of what the approach is. So that allowed, just like during the workshop, people can just validate it, instead of just trying to spend hands on day trying to really conceptualize it, right?
Sure.
Yeah, lastly, I think by adopting this product mindset that, is kind of like the buzzword in the industry right now, is kind of, we think in terms of MVPs and trying to break things down to that. So what's delivered the most impactful and what can be the most converted, right? So, we thought of within HomeServe, the crucial journeys that became our main products that we want to look at, focus on iterating those journeys to deliver the MVP. So, having also Christy as much part of our team and her team as part of our team really helped that process and decision making quicker, and of course having a lot of time to review it as well.
Yeah, sure. But what, from your perspective, Christy, what was that? How did you find that way of working? Was it different?
Really different. And I think there's a couple of things to it. I'm not sure I'm allowed to say the C word this early on, but we did start this in a COVID environment. And, if anyone had asked me a year ago, would I give my most important asset to a team I've never actually met in person to develop, I would have said that is madness. But the reality is we've done this whole thing start to finish, over Zoom. And we haven't been able to get together and meet together. So we've had to work in a really, the whole process was designed to be agile, but it's been even more intensified by the fact we've never physically met in person. But yeah, we have very much had to change the way that we work. We do have Scrum teams internally that do our build for us, that work in an agile methodology. The reality is, and when you have small agile teams in a non-agile organization, the first thing we do is try and make them work the way that we do, which I know is frustrating for them because agile methodology is set up for a very particular reason. And so we had to really, we wanted to work in a way that was responsive. We wanted to work in a way that was iterative, but we did have to keep doing a check-in to say, are we sticking to that? And are we working in that way? Because suddenly we all wanted loads of meetings and we wanted PowerPoint decks pulling together. And actually what we should have been doing is focusing on what's the work that we need to do and how we move the work forward. So I think there is to work in a very fast and flexible way, especially in a bigger organization, you need to have the strength of relationship with your agency partner, that you really trust them and that you can give them permission to be able to challenge you when you're like, no, we set out a really clear way of working and we're not sticking to it now. And I think for us that made the real difference, as well as we had a single-minded focus. It's all about doubling conversion. So whenever we lost our way and we started talking about, we had endless colours about shades of conversations about shades of teal, right? But actually, we were like, is this change going to contribute towards doubling conversion? Because if it's not, take it off the table. We will move fast on those things that deliver against our objective and drive the biggest return for us.
I think that's a really good point about that having that laser focus on a single KPI or something can really help. Just going back to your point, Bowie, actually, well, both of you, you talk about working as one team. I know we actually haven't met, have we, Christy? No. Any tips, tricks, or ways to work remotely? Bowie,
fun.
What did you do?
Yeah.
Sorry?
I say keep it fun, keep it light, especially when you're on a Zoom call and everyone's on Zoom call 10 hours a day, you're gonna be zoomed out actually, So you keep it light, you keep it, try to keep everyone's kind of energy up a little bit. You do things in short strides, take a lot of breaks, right? And then you just kind of make sure you have a clear agenda going, right? The last thing you want to just dap around for hours on Zoom.
No, definitely. And, in the discovery phase, short though it was, we had a succession of kind of 2-3 hour workshops on Zoom. And when we first saw the schedule, like my whole team were like, you want me to do what? 3 hours on a Zoom workshop? That is not going to work for us. And we came off every Zoom call with the team going, oh, that just flew by. I can't believe, and it is, to Bowie's point, it's the way it was structured. You know, you guys gave us really good structure. You created loads of breakout space. You used technology really well to facilitate it. And we kept it light and kept it pacey, so that it didn't feel like we were sat for 3 hours on a Zoom call staring at each other and arguing about shades of teal.
Yeah, so I was just looking at a question. Actually, it's actually quite pertinent to ask now. And that's so Christy, what was the original brief to the? Was it
so
that?
The original brief was that simple. It was, our brief was, how can we transform our agency? How can we transform our website to double our baseline level of conversion? That was the brief that we gave. And then the rails around that were quite loose to start off with. That's why the discovery phase we had was so important. We knew we needed to double conversion because we'd worked through the impacts of doing that. And, you know, we knew that was the baseline benefit we wanted to get to justify the investment. And then it was really to you guys to then do the discovery phase to work out what were the biggest levers in doing that.
Sure.
We had some hunches in the brief. You know, we've got a really great customer insight team. So we knew how our customers were performing. We knew where some of our strengths and weaknesses were, but we're not experts in UX. And that's why we needed to work with a partner that we could give those insights to and help translate them into outputs for us.
Okay, Eric, I hope that answered the question. I'll pick up the bit about what changed along the way a bit later. I think it might be a good time. So, okay, so you've had to run a very new process. It's new for us as an agency as well. We've always been able to work remotely, but actually conducting workshops has been quite different. It means we have to be way more prepared, albeit I think there's some great tools out there that I know we used to collaborate with virtual whiteboards and things like that, where they aren't just for the day, they continue to evolve and are great new sort of ways of working as well. So we're adapting as well as you are when it comes to delivering projects like this as well. But Bowie, is it? I know Ellie's on the screen that says design. I think Ellie's going to show us some of the outputs. Could we show some of them just so it's good for people to see how? I think it's really. It's pretty brave to just change parts of a site, because it's all too easy to try and do the whole thing. So it'd be good just to go through that. And I don't know if we've got examples of where we're going to show maybe some of the old versus new. Bowie, do you want to talk us through some of the outputs?
Yeah. So before Chris and I could kind of dissect the website a little bit. Some of the output, I guess, within our rapid design, we're not like detailed wireframes or documentations or content inventories or anything like that. Instead, like you said, PG, we use tools like Figma and Miro to kind of collaborate and design quickly. And this involved, having the document like a living document that everyone, both from agency and client, are involved in the design process from start to finish, right? So there's no big surprises at the end. It's just more happy people that we get to see what the work was. Also developing that design system early, right? Reusing existing components as much as we can and modifying it so that we can move from a concept to the UI prototype quickly. Same for content. We try to do the same, keep it as much as we can, but we should really strip down as much as possible, right? So you see in here is the homepage where we did, and just by those principles, we stripped down the noise of it. We focus on the benefits that attracts users coming to look at the site. What's that selling point? What's that elevated pitch? We brought in human elements to it. We used the brand identity, as you see the house here, to incorporate the image in here. Added social proof and like trust plus ratings here. And as you scroll down, we use kind of like elements to guide the user and see those bubble box as more conversational elements, to make it more friendly, more human, and drive the user to what they need to go to.
Sure.
How you feel, Chris? You probably got a lot of say about the design?
Yeah, and it's made a huge difference to us. It's really difficult if you've not seen that, and as you go through the site, we have only changed a couple of pages so far. It's happening live. But some of the challenges that we had in this site, I mean, this homepage is transformational from where we were. The previous homepage was, I mean, it was ugly. There's no getting away from it. It was ugly. But more importantly, it was really hard to navigate. It wasn't user-centric. It wasn't clear on what our core offers were. It didn't reflect our brand position. It had a massive ugly blue button right across the middle of the page with a brown button underneath for no real reason. And so it was just so difficult for our customers to navigate, and so no real surprise to us that it wasn't driving the levels of conversion that we would like. It was also, and there's always a tension, I think, and it'd be good to get your perspective, Buri, between UX and SEO. So it was very much optimized for SEO because it had every single word on it and throughout the site that you would ever need. But actually, the trade-off is the user experience. So there was just this like brain dump of copy everywhere that made it really hard for people to understand how they made choices on the site. There was also our primary brand color is red. It's Pantone 179 if you're interested, and we've really applied that across the whole site. And red's quite a difficult color to use online. It's a beautiful shade, but it's a difficult color. So we had this mismatch of loads of red. We made it hard to navigate. It wasn't clear. It wasn't optimized for mobile either, the previous homepage. So all of these changes that we've made give it, aesthetically it's moved on, but the aesthetics are not the important part. More importantly, it allows customers to navigate through the site, make choiceful decisions in a much easier, clearer, user-centric way.
Yeah, I totally agree. What we did was we took all the Chrissy's feedback, and she gave a lot of feedback during those workshops about it. And then we applied, Caroline and Jamie applied the UI and UX to this, knowing that, we put in our best efforts to drive the user where it needs to be, use elements that actually are very human and friendly when you look at it to guide them through the process, right? Okay.
Sorry, Barry. So just going back to your point then, where you say, look, you got projects, but then you got products. So how did you then, is the homepage for you a product, or is it, how do you break a product for, just so you can get that mindset?
Yeah, so we looked at it as the whole kind of website as a project, right?
Yeah.
But when we're looking at, a couple of the journeys there, like the installation or repair, those are products, right? And then we were able to then pick those products and then define the product and iterate and make it better, right? Instead of looking at the whole thing, how it connects, do I need to connect, like you say, the content page, or I need to connect the filter? That's a lot of tasks, right? That's where we become a project, and then things become heavy and stressful on here.
Yeah. Okay. So, it's kind of the title of our series is a bit around taking action, because if this was done the old, as a new site, Christy, this wouldn't be live till 2021, no doubt. And what you've missed a lot of opportunities, yeah. I suppose.
No, definitely, and that really informed our thinking. And you're right, it does make me nervous that I know that there's some bits of the site that are now really great and some bits aren't, and therefore the gap becomes wider. And I'm sure people on the webinar will go and have a little tinker, and they'll find lots of pages that we've not got to yet. But that is deliberate, because it allows us to move at pace. It allows us to continue to develop and change as we go. So we're testing everything as it goes live with a continuous testing program. And the reality is, I think I said at the beginning, you could do a 2-year program and then put up a brand new site. But actually, it's a really costly way of doing it. You've missed out on 2 years worth of revenue generation from pages that that you can make work from you. And it's also really hard to then live iterate when you've done it in that way. It's much easier to do a 3-point turn in a Mini than it is in a bus. as a want of a terrible analogy, but it is, if you've built a whole site end to end and there are things in it that aren't working, trying to fix it all is another costly, timely exercise. This way, we have a team that are focused on changing page at a time, and then as one page goes live and one journey goes live or product goes live, then we're consumer testing it so that we continue to iterate, and it just allows us to make the right changes more quickly.
Sure. Okay, so I'm sure there's lots of important sort of stakeholders and parts of the business, different teams within HomeServe. How are you sort of managing their expectations on who's next? Whose area of business gets to be looked at next? How are you managing that?
Yeah, it is an interesting challenge for sure, because I think when you're in concept stage and you're talking about, we're going to redesign the website, there is this expectation from everyone that there's going to be this big bang and every single page changes all at once. So we've been really clear with stakeholders from the outset that that's not the way that we're approaching this. And we've done a lot of stakeholder engagement sessions to walk people through the plan, to understand that it's an iterative process. We've shown the sprints that we're working to. So our internal Scrum team are working in 3-week sprints now. We've shown all of the sprint programs. So we've been completely transparent. The reality is that's great and everyone understands it if your bit's done first. And so for our cover business, because their cover work is being done first, and our policy business, they're like, yeah, get it, it's great, and like my pages are going live. Actually, for some parts of our business that are later on in the plan, they're more, well, their bit's all shiny and new, and why isn't mine? And it is just continually being able to flex the plan as you go is really, really important. So from the original sprint plan that we had, we've already, we changed that, not continually, because you've got to be able to stick to it, but we've already made some conscious decisions about parts of the business we're now going to bring forward, because we recognize there's a bigger commercial opportunity to be had than we previously thought. So I think it's that live conversation. It's helping people understand why we're doing it this way, but then being really open as well to the conversation, because some of the choices we've made on the timeline, we've made based as a website project team, and you don't have all the answers in one project team. Someone then gives you another piece of information, and we iterate and we change accordingly. But it's quite a juggle, because everyone wants the new shiny thing.
Yeah. That might have answered Eric's question earlier. He asked about what changed along the way, and I think you made a really good point that doing it this way enables you to, well, first of all, learn from what you're doing along the way, but also you can quickly pivot or adapt, or like you used to say, change priority if you need to. If there's a, and that's an interesting approach. Sometimes more to if you took another approach, I suppose. So if you've made the changes. I know there's more than just a homepage. What's your expected? Are you seeing anything immediately, or what's your expected impact? We know that you've got one hard KPI about doubling your conversion rate. Have you started to see any impact results?
I'm sure if my insight team are on the call, they would rightly tell me it's too early to quote anything that's statistically significant. Okay. and that's not, it is very, very early days for us. So the new homepage has been up for a couple of weeks. Do you know what? Gary Parsons is from our insight team, and he said that is right. Thank you, Gary. It's too early to tell if it's statistically significant. I would say we are, we're doing a lot of journey mapping. We're doing a lot of ongoing customer research. All the signs we see currently are positive. It is very, very early days for us, and we've lots of parts of the site that we still need to get to. But I think it's going to be really interesting. We know that when we've checked with consumers and on the changes that we've made, we know that they're the right ones. We've just got to validate them as we go through. Sure.
Well, that makes sense. Okay. So what about? Okay, so we now. Changes are being made. Bowie, you mentioned there's a design system now, which I suppose is now informing other parts of the site. What's the this question probably is really for you, Christy. What's the experience taught your teams, I suppose, and any learnings that you've taken from perhaps operating in this way? Is there any sage advice you could give?
I didn't get that.
Oh, Siri's getting involved. Sorry about that. So I would say so there's a number of things we've learned actually. There's a really important learning about finding the right partner. So it's crazy to think that we've never met, but actually, the chemistry. You'd always do an agency chemistry session. I think the chemistry is even more important when you work together virtually. So I think we got that right very early on, actually, and formed strong working relationships and a sense of partnership really early. You've also, I think, got to recognise that the expertise that you need to bring in. So I've been client side long enough and had enough agencies in where I go out to find the expertise and then spend the whole time trying to tell them why I'm cleverer than them. And actually you can't, right? You've got to buy in expertise, and then you've got to trust that they're the experts and allow yourself to be challenged in that way. And then I think the biggest thing that we've learned actually is flexibility, and how we become, more agile, and not agile in the agile sense, but genuinely agile. So we have agile teams in the business, and as a result of the work that we've done, they're already working in a very different way. Like I said, typically our Scrum teams used an agile methodology and worked to 2-week sprints. They're actually now working to 3-week sprints because the way that they work is slightly different. And whereas before they would have gone end to end on a single piece of work, we're actually overlapping some of those pieces of work and really being really fast. So we've one of our insurance cover pages has gone live, and it's designed to have dynamic pricing. And what we would typically have done is we would have waited until we'd put the dynamic pricing in before that site went live. And actually, materially, the structure of that page doesn't mean the dynamic pricing is going to make much difference. So they've done the design, put the page live whilst they do the coding in the background to then make the pricing dynamic. And it's changes in that way of thinking that allows you to be even faster than a sprint agile team are already going. And they're subtle differences, but it's just got us thinking, you sometimes don't lose sight of good in pursuit of perfection, because when you want to test stuff, you can test good and get it to perfect. If you think something's already perfect when you go live, pretty sure it won't be.
Fair enough. Good points as well. I'm going to just move over to some of the questions. We've got a couple here, this might be interesting because we have clients who have internal teams or use third-party partners. Was the original site created by another agency? That's just a question from Robin.
Yes, and I'll be honest, I couldn't tell you who by because it was before my time. So I'm relatively new into the HomeServe business. I've been there almost 12 months. But yes, and I think there is it's not been created by one agency. The challenge we've got with the site is it's sort of a number of sites that have all been stuck together in some ways. And so that's why a lot of the user flows through it aren't clear and consistent, because some bits of it are where we've acquired other businesses and then stuck the two sites together. So it's not one single agency that is responsible for what it was before, but definitely not you guys.
Yeah, sure. And obviously I know this, you have your own internal development capabilities as well, don't you? So
yeah, we do.
Just another question that's been posed. How can we become more focused in our business and know that we're making the changes that are right for now? It's quite a hard question so I suppose it's more about how do we be more focused, or how do we make the choices, I suppose? What are the right choices?
Yeah, and it will always come down to data, right? As a marketeer, the single most powerful weapon you'll ever have in your armory is customer insights. And it is always those customer insights that help you make the right decisions, because if you're guided by how your customer behaves, either now or as a result of what you change, then you'll be making the right business-based decisions. So some of the some of the changes we have made in the site development have been based on gut instinct, because we made some no regret decisions. Most of them, though, were aesthetic. When it's come down to changes that we know are materially going to change the user experience, we've grounded that in data and in customer insights and customer behavioural mapping, because that will always be the thing that guides your decision making.
Yeah, and it cuts out a lot of the arguments and opinions, doesn't it? And I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, I've got some other questions. Might be for you, Bowie, but feel free either to answer. How did you define what customer journeys you were going to redesign, and what was your process for that?
Yeah, again, like how we defined it. I mean, we found out through a lot of the workshop what was the most impactful journey was going to be, right? And based on what the business objective was, and so from there we had a clear understanding that the ones that meant a lot was the one that was going to do a lot of the conversion right first, so that we can test that out, and then we plug up all the other journey. How that process kind of looked like, I wish I can draw it for you, but I'll do an imaginary line. So you saw, always kind of doing like your baseline research, right? Get an understanding of the requirements and what the user does, and then kind of tiptoe and go down to designing, thinking about the concept. But then at some point you iterate and you go around the circle until you get that to the point where you want to showcase it. Then you move on to the next circle, right? Where you kind of design it and test it, and then you move on. But during those two big circles, you do have like iteration of testing and learning, and going back and forth within that. So that's kind of the process that we look like. It looked like really long-winded, but that goes really quick sometimes if you know what you're looking for. Hey, if you have the right kind of testing behind it.
Okay, thanks, Barry. As another question, describe a bit more. Actually, this is really interesting. User testing. You mentioned a bit about validation there, Christy. User testing during these lockdown, remote working. So, can you describe a bit more about your process of user testing during lockdown and remote working? Did you recruit customers internally? How much validation have you done with users after the design?
So we've done a number of different things, actually. And I would say from a user testing perspective for online, I don't think that, and Bowie, tell me if I'm wrong, I don't think Corona actually makes much of a difference in doing it virtually, because it's a testing methodology that runs virtually just as well. Mm-hmm. I guess the only thing you might have is if you're doing user testing and you're doing it in person, you've more of a chance to kind of watch people depending on the type of testing that you're doing. Mm-hmm. But actually for us, because it's about mapping their usage through the site, then we've done all of that virtually through a number of different partners. We've also done some really interesting neuro insight work as well. So we actually kicked that off before we went into lockdown, and we mapped people's cognitive reaction. We didn't, we worked with a partner. We mapped people's cognitive reactions to how they used the site and how they interacted with the site. And that was really, really powerful for us to be able to put together I guess the implied use that people have when they're navigating through it, and the real use you get from looking at people's brains when you see how they're actually navigating with the site. And those two things together allow you to make choices. But certainly from our experience, user testing and virtually makes no difference at all.
Sure.
I don't know what you'd say, Bowie.
I think good point. Yourself, Bowie?
I think so. I mean, like most of the testing today, I mean, we're using technology like, usertesting.com or Look Back, so those are already remote ones that we're using. So there's no difference right now, I think when you need to have that face-to-face, it's more about getting the reaction when they're actually playing with that physical device, or, you want to get a certain feel for the brand, right? Okay, but from a kind of user flow, user journey, make sure that works. I think these remote tools are sufficing.
That way. Yeah, I agree. This is a great question. Did you face, this is all about feasibility, did you face challenges of what your back-end systems could cope with versus the ideal front-end user experience? So, obviously that must impact what you can design and what you can't design as well. How did you face that challenge?
Yeah, definitely. And we've had challenges, I think it's fair to say, Barry, isn't it, between our yeah, we've and you'll have the detail more than me. But the way that we've worked it through is making sure that our IT team, so we had a key number of our IT and digital team as part of the project. So I'm sure you can talk more about some of the challenges, but we made sure we joined up the right people in order to expedite the understanding of those gaps.
We like Chris said, we actually involve our IT members as part of the whole process, right? So they were able to feed in early, about the requirements and what you can do and what you can't do. Especially there was some compliance type of I guess process that we had to consider, right? But knowing that, we were able to adjust our design or UX for it very smoothly and efficiently for that. Without that, I don't think, like you said at the beginning of the slide, you go through that big bang failure at the end, This is about failing fast, failing quickly, so that you can move on quickly.
Yeah. And it is, for us, it's not just about the tech stack and the infrastructure. To Bui's point, we're a financially regulated company. So that brings with it, compliance regulations that we have to have on site, which are challenging in some ways to work around, because trust me, aesthetically, what you want to deliver is quite different to compliantly what you need to deliver. And so we've had to work through that. We've some legacy back-end systems that we're working with some parts of our business that we've acquired. And so therefore that's brought in other, and so we've had to work all of that through together. The really important thing, to Bui's point, is we had the IT team that knew all of that stuff on the pitch from day one. So we were really, we had a small team, but we were really choiceful about everyone that was in that team. And if, from my side, if the people in that team couldn't help us get to the outcome, then they weren't on the team. Not that they're not valuable, but they've got another job to do. And so we didn't want to do all of the design and, make it look really pretty and then find out it was technically impossible. So it's the right people. You've got me into the football now. It's the right people on the pitch.
That's right.
Yeah, you're right, in the right team. And
yeah,
that's a good point, because you actually also, your experience platform, you're also migrating that at the time as well. So you had that challenge as well. So I think it's important to I suppose my take on that, you have to know what your limitations and feasibility of the platform is. There's no point in promising the world when you can't get there, or it will take too long. And that goes back to your iterative approach too. I'm conscious of time, and I want to give everyone a few minutes back, because I'm sure we've all got another Zoom meeting to go to at 4 o'clock. But I suppose if I can summarise some of the thoughts that both Christy and Bui have had today. But Bui mentioned about being pretty focused on what that business challenge is you're trying to solve, and it's very easy to go down the aesthetic route, Bui, but if you keep that business challenge, what we're here to do today, and keep your teams focused on that's what you're there to do. You also, Bui, you talk about, think of a, I mean, in this instance, it was a website. It could be any project. Your website's a project, but you're breaking it up into products, and I think that's quite a different approach to what we've seen as an agency who's grown up perhaps building these big programs of work. But it's all about breaking it into products and what can we do iteratively. Chrissy, you mentioned about engaging partners who are experts. Put them on the hook, let them be accountable for what you're trying to achieve as a business too, and bring them into that challenge rather than I want a nice looking website. No, we're here to do one thing only, and that's to drive conversion rates. But I did write down your NFL principles, even though I'll call them experience principles. You talk about being human, making sure everything you do is human-centered. It has that user at the center, so you're testing it. Fail fast, I really, is something we advocate as an agency, not being afraid to fail, but actually learning quickly from them. So if something isn't working on that page, that's fine. We'll change it and we'll move on. And I think that gives you the freedom to pivot, Christy, and be adaptable and to perhaps change your priorities as you need to. You talk about working as one. You both had some nice examples of how you can work together using tools like Miro and obviously Zoom and other other workflow tools. And your analogy about a small tackle can win the game, Bowie, that does resonate, and certainly is something we would advocate as an agency. You know, these small wins can mean a lot. And lastly, I like, Chris, you know, your point around mindset, agile. It's made you perhaps rethink the way you approach agile, be more leaner. But I really like your point around chemistry. We haven't met. We haven't been able to celebrate our relationship with a drink at the end. But we had to develop that trust and respect right from the offset, which is really interesting, and developing that chemistry, because workshops or co-design or co-creation means you've got to have good chemistry, and it's important that you have that, and that you find that as well. So can I thank you both, Christy, thank you, and Bowie, thank you for joining us today and giving up your time. I know it's valuable. Thank you to all the listeners on the live webinar right now, and to all of you who are watching the recording too. We thank you for your time today. Lastly, I can't see the screen. I'm sure Ellie's going to it now. Here's the marketing call. But Bowie's team are giving away a free workshop for your brand, where him and his team will review a business challenge of yours, and recommend rapid changes or recommendations, and the team you need to do this. So please look out for the details in our follow-up email to this webinar, where you can apply for that too. I can't see any terms and conditions, but I'm sure they apply. But yeah, please look out for the email. So thank you very much, Christy, for your time, and Bowie too as well. It's been a great discussion.
Yeah. Thanks, Christy. Thanks, PG.
Thanks, guys.
No
We
problem.
need to drink soon, Christy.
Very soon. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.